I told him it was going to be great, but he's unconvinced. So, yeah, good question. Was waiting for it, so glad we got it out of the way. Wanted to share with you guys. It's just a code for your club. It's May Take 5. You get $5 off a membership if you renew in the next 24 hours. So throw in your numbers down here. At least this is what West Insurance has. 21 members on your roster and 14 as of the end of March, and need 17s to get the 75%. I don't know if you guys have hit it before, but figured I'd throw it in there for your knowledge. Yeah, so I could get into judge trading and sensory unless there was a more important topic or pertinent topic that you guys wanted to get into, whether it was homebrew club events or best practices or something I didn't even think about. So I'll take the silence as I'm doing okay, and I'm going to keep going.
You're doing great.
All right.
We're really hoping to get a BJCP exam scheduled here in a couple of years.
Okay. I would mention to that, and I was going to bring it up later. To get that schedule, you definitely want to work. I don't know who the closest BJCP rep to you is, but constantly bugging them about it would definitely be the way to go on getting it sooner rather than later. And if it's a bummer is the whole certain limit on exams, and a lot of exams have recently been international, I've noticed. Not exactly, I mean, I guess there's a lot of growth internationally for there to become a judge, but that doesn't leave a whole lot of room for the US judge pool to keep growing. And it'd be nice if they separated it out, and I know they've gotten feedback on that, but real life pressure is much better than me saying as a NHC director being like, hey, I feel like we should get more judges in the pipeline here. So I wanted to mention that before I forgot. So I don't know how developed your sensory program is or judge training program is, but I'll just kind of go over some basics and hopefully spark some ideas for setting that up, and have shared with other clubs how to set that up as well, better in the midst of basically just getting off the ground. And I don't know if there's talk of setting up a competition as well, and I can get into that later. So obviously homebrewing a lot gets you familiar with the process and how beer is made, and you're all in a club, so that's a check mark. You don't have to worry about that. But really, getting involved in competition should start with stewarding, and I say that because it's very unintimidating and allows you to learn a lot and soak up a lot of information informally. And if you're, so say you're stewarding with a judge pair, and some of those judges are very high ranking, and I don't know what the competition circuit looks like in West Virginia necessarily. I know there's some in Huntington and across the border as well in Ohio, and I'm pretty sure that's close to you guys. And stewarding allows you to see kind of like start to finish nuts and bolts of not only the logistics of a competition, but also kind of what it's like to judge, and get you kind of used to like how a judge judges, like a good judge judges, and then you'll start to kind of understand what makes a good judge and a not so good judge, or like a judge that's trying to become a better judge. And you do that for a while, and like that's exactly what I did when I first started and I came out on the AHA. I started stewarding competitions. I didn't want to judge. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to write down there, in mouthfeel, or didn't have the vocab. But you can start to like learn that lexicon in a very like informal and just relaxed setting, right? And usually judges are very, they'll chat you up and like, ask if you've ever judged before, and then kind of like teach you along the way of like, hey, smell this, or like, are you getting that? Like this is, you know, and then you can kind of listen to their discussions as well and just pick up on, you know, how the whole thing's done. And then you go into judging. And so the training part, you know, there's the BJCP, the Beer Judge Certification Program, a lot of good info. The Cicerone program is more geared towards serving and handling. It does have some good information, but I would definitely lean towards the more towards the BJCP side of things. Cicerone is great though. Like, you know, it kind of, BJCP is very specific in styles and brewing and off flavors, and really deep dive into that and ingredients. And then the Cicerone is kind of rounds out that circle with keeping and serving, food and beer, history, and things of that nature. And it's not as deep, but good knowledge to have nonetheless. And it still harps on off flavors as well. Homebrew clubs, you know, allows you to set up a training session with, you know, regular training session with everyone. And then, you know, I put shops in here because they usually have good grounds to do those training sessions and have access to a lot of things that might be helpful in a program. Definitely would just at least take the Cicerone entrance exam. I think it's 150 questions for an hour. And I become like a certified beer server. And then the BJCP one is 200 questions in an hour. And you'd be surprised at how much you already know. I would say that. I would not be intimidated by the question amount. I definitely was. So it's totally normal. But, you know, I bought the 3-pack, which they sell it. You can take you can buy like 3 for $2 or something. Because you're just like, you don't want to have to keep buying it. And then you can just like take it right away again. But I passed it in the first time and definitely didn't think that because I bought the 3-pack, obviously. And you know, they're not asking like, what's the range of a Belgian Golden Strong, like FG, Final Gravity? Like, they're not going to ask you that in depth. It's going to be more of just, you're taking it seriously, you know, some stuff about beer, and you want to pursue judging. And you don't have to get it perfect. I think it's like 80% on the exam. It might be more. I should probably know that, but easy to look up. And then you just want to keep volunteering. And it's actually great to be a judge and not certified, because you get to judge because you're considered a novice or an apprentice or any other word that's not certified or above, provisional recognized, and you get paired with a much higher judge rank when you're judging, and they're going to be the best teacher for you when you're judging at a competition. I mean, they're going to be able to walk you through, you know, why, you know, putting words to smells and taste, you know, having you understand how to judge to a style rather than to your subjective likes and dislikes. And I think that is the biggest hurdle to get over, is you're not judging if you like it or not. The entrant, you know, it's nice if you do, but you first want to be looking at it as like, is this the style? And, you know, one like small detail I always give out is like, I always look at the intensity levels of things rather than the actual descriptor. So instead of looking at floral, citrus, hops, I look at, you know, is it moderately low to moderate, or is it, you know, none to low aroma? You know, that is a big thing that I learned after my first year of judging, was looking at those intensity levels, because you could get a beer and, you know, you could be getting, you're probably going to get hops, malt, yeast character, but like, what's the intensity level in there, and is it in or out of style, or is it inappropriate or not? And that really, you know, allows you to evaluate a little bit more objectively, because judging is inherently subjective. So you're judging with a pair judge, cuts that down a bit because you're going to have to talk and deliberate, and you are judging to a style. So that cuts down that subjective component, because your name is on that score sheet, and that entrant could, if they want to, email you being like, why are you judging this beer this way? the style guideline says X, Y, Z, and you judged it as A, B, C. And, you know, that's just not a good feeling as a judge, right? Like, you want to do the entrant good. If you were an entrant, you were paying that money and dropping off your beer and wanted just objective feedback, unbiased, unanimous, or anonymous feedback. That's what that's what you'd want. So, keeping all of that in mind, that is how you get into judging. And these are some things. And I'll send this out to you, Jed, when I finish, so don't feel like you got to write anything down. But these are just kind of resources that I like that allow you to kind of like keep it going and developing your judge training. I would say working with that BJCP rep can help put out like a 12-week plan of what you want your judge program to accomplish in those 12 weeks. Is it everyone takes and passes the entrance exam? Is it, something else that I can't think of right now? But, set out a goal that's reasonable with that group, and then help, use that BJCP rep, or, you can ask me if you want, putting a plan in place to execute it and sticking to that plan. So, odd flavor kits, I always point this one out in this list. These are so crucial to a new judge, I think, because it allows you to understand what an off flavor is, rather than it's just some flavor in a beer that you drink. And helps you, and then that's tying back to the brewing process of like, how do you get that off flavor? It also helps the judge recognize what their strengths and weaknesses are. So, doing that off flavor kit, a judge might not get diacetyl very well. It might have a high threshold, but has a low threshold for oxidation. So they can like work those things out in a training session. So when then they go to judge, they are able to share that with their judge partner or partners, and just makes for a more complete judging of the entry.
Yeah, we've been working through one in the club this year, so we're probably going to keep that a regular staple in the club.
I'm hoping the BJCP comes out with some suggestions on how to do training, exam training, and maybe exams virtually. So obviously, this situation is accelerating the need for a lot of things. One being, people want to continue their training. Like, I was studying for my advanced Cicerone exam in the middle of all this, and it was canceled, which sucks. And I'm sure that's happened to a lot of people with the BJCP exam as well, and hard to reschedule it, right? So I'm hopeful they'll come out with something. And if I think they are, based on my talks with the exam director or with the educational director. So stay tuned for that. And if you have questions on this or setting up a program or anything like that, I can take them now, or you can send them to me later. Or if there's like specific materials that you want, I put Cicerone in here as well. It's nice as a club to buy those resources together, and then you can just share them or scan them, PDF scan them into a document to share digitally. So like they have all these course books like brewing ingredients, brewing process, American styles, Belgian styles, German styles, English and Irish styles. But they're all like 120 pages long, and they're not it's just less expensive, and you can just collectively buy them as a club. I'll keep going. Oh, nice. Thumbs up. So I'll get into what, at least to consider if you want to have a competition in the next 6 months, probably, or at least the next 3 months. depending on how everything looks in the fall. And just a quick overview on National Homework Competition to give some perspective on what we were thinking about. Began in 79, had 31 entries. It's now 9,200 entries as of last year. It was about the same size this year before it was canceled. And there are 13 sites that are all part of this one competition. And cohesively moving all of those sites to do the same thing takes some time and is really difficult when you keep throwing new barriers in front of it and restrictions and challenges. So just keep that in mind. But the benefit of a club doing anything is it all is happening in one place usually, and you have time on your side right now, whereas we were making decisions on, very quickly within a matter of hours, and having to decide, with the information that we had available. So, the areas we were considering were health and safety, first and foremost at the time, and then operations, logistics, and planning. The financials of all of this, like increased budget spends, what does entry fee look like moving forward? All those things. Again, if you're just planning it now, you can adjust for that. But when we were already in the midst of all this, you couldn't really charge more entry fee. You just had to keep driving money into expenses to maybe execute it somewhat properly. Expectations. So, NHC has an expectation that judges have, that entrants have. How do all of these logistics, operations, and financials affect those expectations? And then, with all of that, throwing on top local, state, and federal guidelines and restrictions makes it difficult. So I'll go into each one quickly, and then if you have any questions on it, feel free to ask. Or even in the middle of it, feel free to yell at me and get me to pause for a second. So health and safety, concerning all the groups involved, so judges, stewards, volunteers, organizing team, host locations, those employees that work at that host location, which is usually a brewery. Anyone else I'm not thinking of, what looks safe and responsible to them, and what kind of decisions do you want them to be making versus the decisions that you can be making for them, and would make them feel comfortable. Available PPE gear was a thing that we were discussing, like how many masks do we need? Does everyone need to be wearing gloves? How much sanitizer can we get at the moment when it's all moving off the shelves faster than a flock of pigeons? Or, disinfectant wipes, as well as figuring out how to limit contact with items and social distance properly. Granted, again, this is all during the height, the really rapid response of all this. And now that we're kind of or at least somewhat easing back and have an understanding of what's kind of going on, I think some of these things are doable now. Sorry, my echo just started talking suddenly, and it's an Indian accent, so it really threw me off. So so then you and another thing was this probably doesn't need to go in here, but the receiving bottles and packages of entries, you pretty much have to disinfect every bottle you get on check-in and every package, at least wearing gloves. And is that okay for the host location to be accepting all those extra packages going on? And who's going to be handling those? Is the host location staff handling that? Are they comfortable with that? So that was just a lot of things to be considering. And then the operational side of executing all of that through that health and safety lens. So you got again, the shipping and drop-off locations, are they cool with all of this happening? And then you're receiving all of those entries and packages and taking precautions for check-in and sorting and storage. So really disinfecting every bottle with a wipe or something, and then sorting, and then checking it in with labels, sorting it into a case box, and then you're done with sorting. So that was doable. Although at some sites you weren't actually allowed in the actual facility, so that made it challenging to actually have sorting and check-in. Philadelphia, for example, they actually couldn't go to the shipping location to sort because they weren't allowed in from county rule or county executive order. And then there's a component of handing off that beer to judges. And what does that look like? Are you going to have judges virtually judging? You know, one judge judging one bottle and one judge judging the other bottle isn't the same beer. It can be different. There could be oxidation in one. It could be overcarbed. One might be chilled. One might be cellar temp. How are you handing the beer off? Are you delivering the whole category to a judge team and having them socially distant in a house or in an open area that has airflow, but not next to each other? And then you don't really have oversight on quality and integrity if you're having all these, if you have like 30 different areas of people judging. So, and at least for NHC, it was like, well, we can't control quality or integrity, and handing off 800 entries over the course of a couple weeks is impossible to accomplish. The delivery to feedback was definitely an easier component to figure out. You can scan score sheets in and send them via email with some software that we have. So again, it was it was hard to imagine it being run smoothly when we were all trying to think about how to do it on the fly and then execute it across 13 sites. But as a single area site, you could do it now, I think. Financial implications of all of it, it's going to vary from competition to competition. So don't have to go too in depth with there. Benjamin wearing his safety mask. It's important. And then your expectations, right? Like, you're going to have to extend the judging timeline and the shipping timeline, and are you going to have to push the event out because of things going on? What is the judging expectation? So what can judges be expecting for helping out with this? What can entrants expect on feedback? You know, if they're judging 2 bottles for one instead of 1 bottle, there's going to be a difference. Are you doing no mini best of show, and then the 2 judges are judging 2 bottles separately, and then they just deliberate on all X amount of entries in a category, and then, you know, determining as a group what's considered a success. So, you know, a lot of clubs I've talked with, they're like, yeah, we put on this like 300 to 400 entry event. I'm like, yeah, well, honestly, you probably have to start with cutting the entry count down to make this feasible, because you can't expect, you're gonna probably have to ask for more bottles, and you're gonna expect people to be submitting the same amount of beer, like entry wise, and capacity, and the amount of judges that you can get. So judge recruitment earlier, and then asking up front, are you completely comfortable, somewhat comfortable, and not comfortable at all judging with someone else, with these precautions being taken as a stipulation of that. So it's definitely, none of it looks the same, and judging's so inherently intimate with someone else that it's going to feel weird whenever someone actually puts on a homebrew competition and tries to do it successfully. And then you have local, state, and federal restrictions with all of it. So that could totally affect any decision that you're making. Ideally, as things ease out, that will become less and less an issue, and we can have gatherings of 10 or 25 or 50, and can make people feel comfortable and safe. Before I go to the next part, any questions with that or concerns or?
Are you guys planning on maybe having to do this for NHC next year? Just kind of, or I mean, if you just come up with a plan in case something like this ever happens again, you could, implement it.
I think that is definitely where my head's at. I would love to have this as a well thought out plan. I want all the entrants to be aware of it, like how he would execute it, and do so by also delivering the product, the high quality product, which is the feedback and the integrity of it, and the amount of like the type of judge that we're using, a certified judge in every beer. It's just it's going to take some time to kind of vet it out, I think, of like what an entrant would want and what they're asking instead to send 4 bottles instead of 2. I mean, that anyone who has to ship, that just adds double the weight on shipping. It's also doubling the capacity of that we already have for bottles. So instead of 1,500, it's 3,000 bottles. So it's considering all of those options. Maybe it's 3 bottles instead of 2, instead of maybe not 4. Yeah, definitely am hoping to have that figured out with many, many more discussions to go. And if you have any ideas, I would love to hear them. I don't think anyone has an answer.
Yeah, no, I was just interested because I know I've seen from emails that that event is such a huge moneymaker for you guys. So it's kind of rough to have to cancel that, obviously.
Yeah, both HomebrewCon and NHC. Definitely is brutal. But we'll survive, and we'll get creative. And, again, who knows what everything looks like in November. If you asked anyone in February what April would look like, we'd probably all be wrong. So, yeah, certainly probably have like a worst case scenario thing to do, and then some hybrids depending on what things look like. Now that we've kind of seen like what nothing is, obviously, is just run the way it normally is, what an extreme level is and how you would do anything, and then what a kind of easing policy would look like. So probably having all 3 options in place by I would like to say September or October would probably be at least by Thanksgiving would definitely be my goal, to have all that figured out. But a lot of suggestions out there.
Austin asked in the chat, I don't know if you saw it, but he was asking if you all had resources on how somebody could do their like first competition in a club in general, even without the COVID-19.
Yeah. So what I did with another club is I basically shared how I set up NHC. And, it's 13 sites, but each site is doing the same thing. So I could share that with you guys if you'd like, on what that looks like, what you need to be looking into, how to put a team together, the roles of each person on that team, and kind of like a general timeline on hitting certain milestones, like acquiring a drop-off location, check-in day, etc., judge recruitment, all that stuff. So I will send that to you, Jed.
Cool.
All right. Anything else? If you think of anything, feel free to yell at me.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What about any AHA rallies? I mean, in the future, where are they going to be?
Good question. You know, if I'm taking a guess at being honest, I would say there probably not many are going to happen soon. And if they do, well, I take that back. They can happen. We wouldn't have as many resources to put at it as we have in the past, just because of our situation as an association. And I know we definitely couldn't be flying anyone to them, which is a bummer. But just the reality. But I think where it stands now is like we would love breweries to put it on and have volunteers run it, but we just wouldn't really be able to like support it as much as we have. And I know they've kind of been dwindling down as far as count is concerned. And now it's, you know, given the state of affairs, it's definitely even harder to convince management and upper management that that's a worthy thing to put on and spend our money on. But if there's a brewer that's willing to do it, we can certainly talk about what it would look like to put it on. Just we wouldn't be able to support it as much. Because I think they are valuable. I get that all the time about like, what's up with rallies?
Yeah, the few I've been to were great. I mean, they were really good.
What was the last one you went to?
It was at Stone Brewing in Virginia.
Nice. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Matt was out at that one. Stone just also puts on like an amazing rally. They've been doing it for so long.
Yeah, it was great. I had like 2 floors, and the upstairs like had everybody's beer, you know, you could try. They had food trucks outside. It was a good time.
That's awesome. I think there were like over 100 people there.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. I think it's, you know, if there's a brewery you have in mind, I think we have some annual ones that I think will always happen, like the Stone rallies and the St. Arnold's and Heretic and a few others that are kind of run themselves. But as far as like getting new ones in, I would say it's going to be more onus on the brewery and the homebrew community than before, but they can definitely still happen. So hopefully that answers enough.
Thank you.
Question, yeah, man. I can get into some events that I've seen from clubs if you guys are interested in that. And
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, our club is only about 2 years old. I don't know if you knew. It's not even 2 years old. So there's definitely some of those things will be great.
Awesome. All right. I'll just breeze through these and again, share them out with the links to the club afterwards. There's a bottoms up 4K beer run. So you set up 3 stations, and every person participating has to basically chug 4 ounces of a sample race competitors homebrew, and by the end of the race everyone's had a beer, and you use it as a fundraiser event to donate to whatever charity of your choosing. Again, this is all going to be somewhat contingent on legislation in the state, so you'd have to figure out if this is something that's legal in West Virginia, which I don't think it is. Robert's shaking his head at me.
Yeah.
But it's legal in some states, and it's always something to strive for in changing policy. And anyway, some of these are going to be good to go, others won't be, but they might spark a different idea, so always worth sharing them anyway.
You can do it in West Virginia as long as it's on private property. You couldn't do it out in public.
Okay, good to know.
And you probably couldn't charge money for the beer side of it, you know. That'd just be
right. And they would consider charitable donation as probably payment if it's not explicitly stated.
People do those things here anyway. You know,
right.
You don't ask, is it legal? Because if you ask, you'll get an answer you don't want.
It is such a Western PA, West Virginia, Ohio mindset. I love it.
Yeah.
I know it. I know it so well.
We could. The issue we've got down here is we're just too damn close to actually ABC's headquarters. You know, there's a couple organizations in the state that do like home brewers for hunger and stuff like that pretty much get away with it because they're 2 hours away from the capital and nobody cares. Or, you know, all they care about up there, like when they hold in Morgantown or Fairmont, all they care about is making sure there's no underage drinking. You got 2 universities there. Whereas down here, you know, any event would be within 15 minutes of, you know, the commissioner's home and stuff like that. It's more difficult to get away with shit down here.
Yeah, can't promote it then, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
Not publicly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I know. As a tangent, I would love to work on updating West Virginia's homebrew legislation, since there really isn't any.
Right.
But yeah, as a
Be
tangent.
careful what you ask for.
Yeah. It'd have to be, yeah, it's a lot.
Charles and Rob will be following up with you.
I think I've actually talked with both Charles and Rob. I know I definitely talked with Rob, and I feel like I've talked with Charles too on email, but maybe I'm wrong. A word share, which you could do because it's not alcohol. You could do like a post mash or post boil with a brewery and have homebrew club members come with a 5-gallon vessel, whatever they want. And Surly does this. They made this, like, they called it a wort udder. It's pretty sweet. It's a funny name, but it's a pretty sweet contraption. It has like 6 ports. It looks like an udder, and wort comes out of it. And it just like allows them to fill up a massive amount of vessels in a short amount of time, usually because they're having like hundreds of people at this, what it was, a rally. But so you would have to, presuming in West Virginia, you would probably have to pitch the yeast after you left the brewery and got home. But nothing wrong with doing that. And it's kind of a cool way to engage with a brewery in the area. And, you know, you can make it a bigger event than just a wort giveaway. Like you can, you know, have it be like a club event, or like a party or something, and then have that part be the homebrewing component of the party. But fun engagement thing to do, and then you can have a competition with it after, so everyone can choose their own, you know, post boil additives and yeast, and then you have a competition with that. So it's always kind of like a nice full circle thing, and then you make it an annual event with that brewery.
The brewer at the local brewery talked about doing just exactly that. Was send some wort home with anybody that wanted it, and then we'd boil hops, yeast, and come back and see what we made.
There you go. You guys are already on it. You don't even need me. Maybe you do, but it's really fun. It's a cool thing to do, and you know, if you're, you know, you don't have to do any of the mashing. You just have to boil and cool down.
That could be fun.
Fun idea.
Yeah. So Iron Brewer is another idea. The Rotarian Brewing League does this, as well as a few others actually, and kind of your neighbors. And so you, the entrant would specify the yeast they want to use before a cutoff date, and then you would reveal some ingredient that the entrant has to use, and then everyone has to use that ingredient specified, and can also add other ingredients as they'd like that might complement or contrast that ingredient, and then you have a competition with that. So, you know, kind of you picking your yeast needs to be somewhat strategic, I guess, but can also is a wild card and could really make your beer stand out. So it's kind of a play on. You could actually kind of tie that in with the wort giveaway if you wanted. But more details on that in the link that I'll send out.
We do a more loose version of that where every year we pick a weird ingredient that we wouldn't usually brew with, and then we do kind of an in-club competition
Cool.
around it. So,
you know, for competitions, I've found that choosing a theme with the comp is the best option. So, you know, one idea I like a lot is like choosing like a dark beer, like it's got to be like dark, and choosing a fun name with that. You know, there's a competition here. It's called Big Beers is the short name for it, but it's like Belgian barley wines and big beers. Everything has to be within that realm, and it just, you know, it prevents an entrant being like, oh, what should I brew? It's just like, no, I have to brew one of these styles, or I have to pick some subset in this style and submit that. And it just makes it a little bit more engaging, and you can create a theme around it and make it a little bit more fun than just we're having a competition and or whatever. So I've always found that to be helpful when starting a comp. Club collab, always a fun thing to do with the clubs in the area, or if you have some sister clubs in a different city or something like that. This is done with clubs in Oregon, but it's done honestly all over the place. And the clubs in Oregon, they served it at Club Night in Portland in 2008, which was really cool. And the fact that they mix it together into a single rye barrel from the distillery and then aged it was a cool twist on it, and added that extra layer of complexity to the, other than just like, you know, let's all make a darker Belgian beer and put it together. But yeah, kind of a fun thing to do, and especially if you have something to look forward to serving it at. So if you have like an event with those clubs, ideally you would, and can find a distiller in the area, you could get a whiskey barrel from them and serve it somewhere. Yeast giveaway. Most commercial breweries, they get rid of their yeast after usually sometimes earlier than 15 fermentations. But again, it's just another thing you can do with a brewery, that instead of them just dumping all this yeast, you can take some sanitized containers there as home brewers and go fill up and have yeast ready to go for a starter. Live Oak does this, but you know, a lot of breweries have done this in the past, and it's just, you know, it could be like a constant thing that you do with breweries in the area.
Bad Shepherd, the closest brewery to us, they've been really open about if people want to bring jars and get yeast, and they'll give us yeast. So, but I don't know that we've really utilized it. So that would be fun to do that, and even maybe do a competition around we could brew beer from the yeast they give us.
That'd be good.
Yeah, and I think, you know, maybe they just let you know well enough ahead of time where you can plan your monthly club meeting there or something, just so, you know, you don't have to be like, oh, we only have like 4 days to get ready here. Hopefully the brewery would have the schedule marked out to know when they want to get rid of that yeast. Community hop beer. So you can grow, if I don't know if any of you grow your own hops, but in Virginia, Hardywood gave out rhizomes, and they then collected the hops and then brewed a beer at harvest with those hops that were brought back from those rhizomes, which is pretty cool. And you know, if you guys are newer, I'm guessing you're not like an absolutely massive club. You could pair up with clubs in the area and do something like this. They also did one in Denver Beer Co. down in Denver, obviously, with a neighborhood hop swap. Yeah, it's just, you know, it's like planning these things out so they're, you know, they're all stacked together, and they, you know, keep you engaged with the brewery and vice versa, or with breweries throughout the year is it's healthy to have for a good beer industry. That was the last one I had on here for events. I do have more though, and there's actually I can send you a bigger document if you'd like more ideas.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Cool. Breeze through best practices quickly, or as quickly as I should. I'm sure you guys are all doing this. Press releases. So we have a media contact list that you can request from the AHA if you're a registered club with us, and that just gives you media contacts in the area or in the state that have covered home brewing or have covered something related to beer, and just allows you to get the word out. So like if you're having some sort of big brew event or a demonstration or anything really, it allows them it gives you a shot at getting covered, and then promoting home brewing, and then maybe growing membership or promoting an event that you want to put on. So really useful tool. And if you need links for that, happy to share that as well. Demonstrations, always great, especially to bring new people into the hobby and the club. If you can do, and since you're not making beer, just don't pitch to the yeast. You can do it in a public place like a brewery or like outside or farmer's market or some sort of arts festival or something like that. That has a lot of foot traffic already, and you're just capitalizing on that. And I always think of it like a cooking demo. So you're going to have stages already set up, not just brewing beer, like a whole process of brewing you're going to have. And we did this in Washington, D.C., which is a great trial area because it's impossible to move around in that city if you don't have a car, even if you do have a car. And figuring out just how to set something up there is so difficult. And we were able to pull it off. And basically we had a mashing station, and then we'd have all the ingredients that went into mashing, and then the boil station. So, just kind of like walking people through the whole process in 10 minutes or 15 of like this, that, finished product. And you'd have hops and some additives in the boil section. In the fermentation section, you would just have what looks like fermenting wort, which is just, you could have like a 1 gallon carboy and mix it with just mix water with yeast to make it look like it's wort, and then have like a little airlock on top. It doesn't need to be beer. And then a bottling station is like a fun thing to have, interactive thing for people to practice bottling, because most people have never done that before, and you just fill bottles up with water. And then have some sort of like takeaway, like next club event is here, or this is what our club's all about, or we have go brew yourself pamphlets that you can request as a club, and those can be a handout, whatever you want. But it's always nice to have them take something simple away that ideally they want to keep and hold on to. So when you have like a welcoming party, and actually I wanted to show this before I get into that. This is the event that we put on that was in DC that I was talking about. So we had I think this was the mashing station. So we have a bunch of like cool signs and stuff like that. And it just, allows people to, if they don't want to talk, they can at least walk themselves through it, and you can engage with them as they're willing to engage with. And then, had a boiling station, and this is the bottling station. This is just kind of an overall picture and then a close-up picture. But, this just to give you a sense of like what it can look like, and not have to keep people on for so long to explain the whole process. They can visually walk through the process as you're talking with them, and you can talk more about what you guys do as a club rather than the homebrewing process, because it's all laid out in front of them.
Cool. I like that.
Yeah. Welcoming party. So, just be like welcoming to new members. So, making sure it's in a public or easy accessible or comfortable place. And, it sounds silly, but like name tags are crucial, I think, especially if you're new to some club or organization. You want to be able to, it shows that everyone is, comfortable with everyone else. Some clubs have like a new member committee, and that's just like a way to kind of like onboard new members and tell them what they're all about, and can create a new member guide, for example. There's an example in here for that. And then each meeting having a theme that kind of keeps things interesting and exciting, and keeps people wanting to come back. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. I already talked about insurance, so I don't know if to do that again. And then, referral link. This is more of like financial support for you guys. As a club, if you get just if your members join through this link rather than just in general, you guys get kickbacks on every membership generated through it. So $5 for 1 year, $7 for a 3-year. We send you a check every quarter with however many members you generate through that times that money amount. And you can share that link wherever you decide. But it's, it's a way that helps us out and helps you out. And we try to give back to you guys by promoting that and giving money back to you. So that, and then just some other smaller stuff. A survey, a regular survey, and that can be an annual one of just like what the membership wants to see throughout the year, or what maybe you want to cut, or maybe a quick survey after an event of like, did you like this? Did you not? What could we change? Always useful to hear from the entire membership without, everyone yelling at a meeting like, I like this or I don't like this. Post an annual state of the club, which is cool. It's kind of like a stewardship report, and it can be super simple on one page, but just, lays out like the finances, money spent, money raised, money back. Just creates a sense of transparency and collectiveness among everyone, and more like a co-op rather than just, here are my dues. And then just like a review of what you've done all year as a club. And then, have bylaws so you know how to operate and there isn't any question on that. And then a succession plan to keep cycling through officers and keep everyone engaged and being able to run for a position in the club. Totally up to you on how long a position lasts, but always good to keep things cycling and fresh. Keep the contact information up to date so members can find you, and you get information from us on events happening or just information that we share in our club newsletter or anything else. And then I got this from Matt, was like a good example of a club email. So like officers@clubname.org instead of like chat@email.com. Hard to transfer the bad email example, but if it's a generic one that all the officers can respond to, then easily transferable. You don't have to update the contact. You just have to transfer the login credentials. And I think that, that's it. I can probably stop. There we go. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks, John. That was great. That was really helpful. Anybody have questions for John?
Yeah, I'll say if you're experiencing a revenue shortfall, has there been any discussions about fundraising as a not for profit?
Yeah. nothing definite, but everyone is taking any idea and seeing if it's worthwhile pursuing. So I don't know what the fundraising would look like or what it would go to. I don't know if we'd want to just fundraise for us. I think it would want to be like a joint thing, like us and then like someone else that's doing something for the homebrewing community. Yeah, I don't really have a good answer for that, I guess. But if you have an idea, happy to hear it. Or if you ever have an idea, it doesn't have to be right now. You're all awake. That's a victory. How are the? How many homebrew shops do you guys have in the area? That's a question I have.
Zero.
Zero. Oh my God.
Closest one's over an hour away.
Okay. How far away is that?
Are we saying Ashland's closest or Marietta?
We have a homebrew shop in
Beckley.
Gotcha.
Wow.
About an hour's drive.
Wow. Is that where you guys go get all of your ingredients?
Or ship it. A lot of us ship it.
Online,
yeah. That would make sense. I want to drive an hour to go pick up 10 pounds of grain. How are the breweries operating right now? Is there a lot of curbside or are they opening up? I don't know what West Virginia's status is.
well, they're mostly all open.
Go ahead, Charles.
Well, I was just saying they're open. I mean, most of them that have tap rooms are, doing either curbside pickup, or a bunch of them now are even delivering in their local areas too. They are not allowed to ship beer in West Virginia. So the ones that, I was surprised how many actually stayed open. And even some of the ones that closed for a few weeks reopened, several of them. So people are, you've seen a lot of trends, like people that didn't bottle before or can have bought equipment, even small manual stuff, just so they can put out, packaged beer. And there's a lot. A bunch of them have added the online ordering. So you can order and pay, and they could deliver, or you could just schedule a pickup and go, they'll take it to your car. So it's been a lot of advancements in a way, which I think will stay with us as much as they're going to be legal in the future.
Yeah, I wanted to point out, you said you couldn't ship, but there are other states that are allowing breweries to ship within their state.
Yeah.
I think that'll gain
Virginia,
traction.
Ohio.
That'll gain traction, I think, for some sort of change at the federal level, or at least accelerate the timeline of what we were looking at for shipping beer, which was probably more like a 10-year outlook, could now be shrunk down. Because now everyone has had a taste, literally, of what shipping beer is like. And they're not going to want to give it up.
I'm going to do a little blog article here about the things that should remain or that need to be continued. And I'm going to even couch some of them in the health, aspects, because they are less contact, the things like that should continue, and we need to be allowed, because a lot of these, even things like delivery, are on an emergency order, and once the emergency state is lifted, which could happen here in a few weeks, those things could be illegal again. You couldn't deliver anymore.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think there's traction on a lot of those things because it's shown to be executed safely, and people want it. I think that's the bigger thing. People don't want things taken away after they're being given it. So I think it's going to be harder now to take it away permanently. Maybe temporarily until they figure out what it fully looks like. But yeah, that's good.
Do you think now might be a good time to see some of the laws changed or legislature changed because there might be some momentum around improving the economy and helping small businesses to do better by lifting restrictions?
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I would hope they would be open to continuing helping any small business and any small business within any industry right now, breweries and homebrew shops included. Just because 80% of employment is by small business. It's deemed small. It's 500 fewer employees, so it's a large chunk of the population. So I would hope they would consider. But for beer, definitely the delivery and the shipping, I think, are two big things that have now been put into practice as an emergency measure that could have traction moving forward. Anything else?
Hey, John, real quick.
Yeah.
You mentioned insurance a few times. Can you shoot us a copy of the declaration page? I just want to see kind of what's covered. Get
Yeah.
a general look at it. Because about 5 years ago, the other group I'm engaged with was sued as part of a stupid suit that eventually got dismissed. But it was a real pain in the ass. And as we were not insured, and I was the only named defendant, from the club, being president at the time, it was kind of a harrowing event. So I'd just like to get a general idea what the insurance policy said.
Yeah,
I have a copy of the policy I could send to you as well, Rob.
Yeah,
Cool.
there's also a officers and something policy, which covers any leadership as well as the club. So to your point, the club could be sued, and if you're one of the members on the club that is seen as a leader or executive, then you could then be sued. So there's like an additional policy that you can buy within that
It's
policy.
one of those errors and omissions policies.
Yeah, I can't remember it's on our website, and I should probably know it, but I just started kind of managing the program now, so I'm still learning, but I could send it to you if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think you got my email.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, directors and officers insurance, D&O policy. Cool. Brilliantstream.com. Cool. I'll check that out. Anything else you guys got? And if you think of anything later on, of anything I've talked about or literally anything else, definitely feel free to send me an email or call me if you really want to, but you can definitely send me an email. And happy to talk and come back whenever you'd like me to.
Cool. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time and giving us some great information and some good ideas.
Yeah, you guys are a lot of fun. And I get, it's a little earlier for me, so it's not so bad. Yeah. It's only 6:30 here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, you guys take good care. I'll send out the information I mentioned to you, Jed and Rob. And yeah. Thanks again. Make sure everyone stays
Thank you, sir.
Sane and healthy, and hopefully you can continue to get good beer.
Cool.
Thanks.
And if you can,
Cheers,
you can always
John.
make it. Cheers, guys.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
For anyone who's interested, we talked about trying to arrange a group grain buy. So we're looking into that as people are probably wanting to brew more and or running out of grain like me. So Kenny might have some more details for us on that.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see me. Can you see me? Yeah.
Yeah.
I got whatever grains you're looking for, like some bacon.